All right, so we are recording. And hey there, driven woman. I have another amazing guest for you today. She is the Womanologist. She's a multi award winning women's champion with diversity, inclusion, and authentic feminine influence at the heart of her work. She's an international strategic ally and master coach to women in senior leadership whose clients include chief executives, directors, and heads of departments across countries. She knows that when these women truly thrive, so do boards, organizations, industries, and ultimately our world. I love that. She uses her powerful insights as a Black Christian, facially different woman to challenge and change inner narratives about what it means to be an incredible influencer in today's fast changing business marketplace. Different women, please make welcome my guest, Dion Johnson. Hi, Dion.
So excited about being here, Sophie. Thank you.
Yes, yes, you are welcome. Is this your first interview with a Jamaican podcaster so far?
No, man, no.
What?
Well, podcasting actually it is podcast, but
Yes.
I've spoken several times in Jamaica, and
What?
and I have a really powerful network of business associates in
Mm-hmm.
Jamaica,
Mm-hmm.
usually mostly women, and mostly women who are about developing the
Yeah.
entrepreneurial landscape of Jamaica, developing women and leadership in Jamaica. So yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
am not a stranger to Jamaica at all.
That's amazing. I always find it so easy to connect with persons from the UK, obviously because of the shared history. But I just
Yeah,
could not. I can't. I don't think I could live there though. It's the clouds, the rain. I don't know, but I always
yeah,
really connect with people from the UK. So, Dion, on
yeah.
that note, I'd love for you to share with us a bit about your childhood and how that has influenced the work that you're doing today.
Oh wow. Well, there's definitely a link. I say that I was born to do this work.
Mm,
When I was born, I didn't develop conventionally in my mother's womb. I
okay.
really, I really love saying that because,
Mm,
you know, as I was in the womb, so I am now, still not developing conventionally. But what it meant for my mother's birthing experience was that she carried a child, me, who
mhm,
facially didn't develop conventionally.
mm,
So I was born with what's called a hair lip. My lower face, my mouth didn't develop conventionally. My face was asymmetrical, and very soon after birth, my left eye, I was blind in my left eye, so it developed cataracts and it was deformed. So I had a really quite pronounced facial disfigurement when I
mhm,
was born. And what that meant for my childhood was that one, my appearance was always a thing.
mhm,
And two, I spent a lot of time in hospital. So
okay.
right from about 3 months old, right the way through to my adulthood, I would be regularly going in for corrective surgery. I would
Mhm,
be having all kinds of facial operations to correct and to align my face, realign my face and
mm,
my mouth. So, so when I was 4 years old, as part of that process, I was gifted an artificial eye,
mhm,
which was this plastic shell that I would slip in over my disfigured eye.
mm,
It was painted to look like my good eye.
mhm,
And then I would have dark glasses that fit over my face. And so the whole point of those, I call them my masks, the whole point of those was to help me to hide,
mhm,
help me to blend in, look more normal, look, yeah, more like just not stand out, not stick out.
yeah, yeah.
And so what I realized, like looking back at that time now, is that I call it the beginning of my life behind the mask. And it taught me such a powerful lesson that I didn't even know I was learning. So it taught me that if something is not right about you, if something is not like everybody else, if something's not standard or normal, then you need to get that thing hidden to be acceptable. You have to put it away, you have to conceal it, you have to mask it. And so that's why I call it the beginning of my life behind the mask. At 4 years old, I was learning that I needed to hide away this aspect of myself that was not okay. And so and from that age, that's how I showed up in life. I showed up hidden. I showed up, I had real ninja moves to make sure that people didn't see me with my bare face. I used to sleep with my artificial eye in my bra because it was uncomfortable to keep it in all the time. So I used to sleep with my artificial eye in my bra and my glasses by my bedside. And so even in my sleep, if somebody came into the room unexpectedly, or as I grew up, as I started to have invite people into my bedroom, then I would have ninja move. If they began to stir, or if there was a risk of them seeing me, I would quickly have to move, or I would just quickly get it out, put it. Even in my sleep, I could do this. So I really lived my life behind these masks, physical masks. And then when and I just didn't question it at all. Like, this is how I showed up in the world. I went into intimate relationships with my mask on. I went into higher education and work with my mask on. I went into my community. Like, that's how I showed up. Everybody knew me like that. Very few people were able to see what I really looked like. And so this is how it went on until 40s. And when I was in my 40s, this was 2009. In 2009, it was I had my background was midwifery. I had a long career in midwifery, and then I left midwifery and went to be a director in public services, local government, for 4 years. So I had a really quite good looking career. I was known as this kind of confident, successful woman. Even as a midwife, I was a pioneering midwife. I was an influential midwife. I changed services. I pioneered things. I was that kind of leader in my professional life. And then, but when I hit 2009, I got to this real low place. And this low place was, it just felt like I wasn't making the kind of difference that I thought I could. It felt like, to the onlookers, my life would look great, but I felt inside an unmistakable, undeniable ache to make more difference. I was working with vulnerable client groups. I could see the patterns that just were cycles of poverty and deprivation. And I could see things that just, I had this heart to change things, but just somehow couldn't make it. And 2009 was a real special year because Obama, the Black man, moved into the White House. It was a superb spectacle. Like, nobody thought they would see this in their lifetime, a Black man moving into the White House. And at one point it looked like Hillary Clinton or him, so it was going to be either a woman or a Black man. It was a time when the impossible things would seemingly come into pass. But at the very same time, Michael Jackson died that year as well. So Michael Jackson, this god in the entertainment business, was everybody was talking about these special people who do amazing things. But then at the very same time, England was was announced to be officially in economic crisis. There was a crash, a financial crash. So there was a lot of talk about how the poor were getting poorer. There was the middle class was going away. You know, economic struggle, deprivation, poverty, can't do like poor. You know, the rich are getting richer, the poor getting, the gaps getting wider. So there's all of this talk about these sensational people and then everybody else. And this began to hurt like in an inexplicable
Yes,
way.
it propelled you
It
to take action.
what it did was it called me to question like which group I was in. It caused me like, I felt like on the inside, on one level, I knew I am great, I am strong, I am powerful, I am smart. And on the other hand, there was this kind of a mismatch, like that actually my life wasn't manifesting as that. It wasn't having that kind of impact. And I had to kind of admit that I belonged in this other group, and I hated that. It was a real struggle for me. So in 2009, I found myself becoming more and more depressed, more and more down, even though my life was looking one way on the outside. On the inside, you know, I just wasn't making it happen. And then my aunt died. And it was like one of them aunties, you know, I'm Jamaican. So, you know, Auntie Tiny was like a second mum. Her kids were like my brothers and sisters. You know, we lived just down the road from each other. Like we were close. And when my Auntie Tiny died, you know, it was painful. It was painful because, again, I was seeing this brilliant woman who was so bright. Like, she was so bright. Like, really, she should have been a prime minister or something. She should have changed the world somehow. And here she was gone. And I could see that it was hurting me, that actually, why can't we reach our potential? Why can't we do what we're here to do? And this was really happening. And then, you know, we had 9 nights. You know how we do 9 nights. So in the process of the 9 nights, I saw Jay, a friend of mine, that, well, she's not a friend. She wasn't a friend anymore, but we were friends when we were young. And now we were in our 40s. She had this 10-year-old son that I hadn't seen, but we were trying to catch up and, you know, work out, you know, what happened to you, and did you still do this, and how's that person? And we're talking, and Jay's son is just getting in the way of the conversation. He was irritating, like fidgeting, making funny noises. Jay said, "Boy, don't you see that we're trying to talk?" And then the boy, almost in slow motion, his finger went up almost in slow motion, and he said, "Mom, she's ugly." And when, like, the place was full, men over there playing dominoes, women over there laughing and chatting, you know, people hanging out there, women in the kitchen cooking, and it's like his voice just filled the room. And I felt it hurt so much. It was like a big thump, and it brought me back to the playground. It brought me back to my childhood of being disfigured, of it just hurt so much. I'd been living my life behind the mask all those years, and here comes this boy, and it's like bang, and it really hurt. His words hurt me. But, you know, I noticed something very powerful. I noticed that even though his words hurt me, I noticed, as if for the first time, that if you were in the room looking at me, you couldn't tell that pain was going on the inside. I mean, I kept my composure, you know, I held on to my swag. I kept myself together. And it's like I noticed it for the first time in that moment. I just noticed, like, nobody seems to be able to see what's going on the inside. I was able to compose the outside while the inside was dying. And I noticed it loud. And I noticed it that week, because every single day that week was the same thing. The next day, I was in the foyer of my church, and these kids came up behind me, tapped me on the shoulder, And I turned around, they pointed at my face, they laughed, this high-pitched, screeching laugh, and then ran off. And it's like, bang, like right in that same place. And every day that week, I used to call it the week from hell, because every day that week something happened and caused me to feel that same bang in the place. And it was all pointing at my face. And I was like, what is this? Every single day something happened. And by the end of that week, I was exhausted and the pain was high. I found myself on my knees with my hands up in the air, crying out to God, rocking and saying, God, something is hurting me. Like, I don't know what this is. I've had a hellish week and I'm in pain. And that's when I like to say, I entered into a conversation with God. And I begin to hear these questions coming to me. Dion, so tell me something, girl. What is all this covering up about anyway?
Yeah.
When you're going to let people see the real you? When you're going to show up for real? I was gobsmacked. I couldn't believe that I was having this conversation. I couldn't believe that these questions were coming to me. I had been wearing the artificial eye and the dark glasses for 40 years. And I had never I'd never questioned it. I thought, of course I have to wear them. Of course how would I be able to go out into the world if I didn't have these? And, I was speaking out loud because that's how me and God roll. I was speaking out loud and I was saying, of course I have to wear. What do you mean? Like, how could I not wear these? I didn't call them masks at the time. How could I not wear these glasses, this artificial eye? How could I not? Look at me. And as I was talking with God, I could hear myself saying, look at me. Look, it wouldn't be fair to make people have to be able to look at this face. It wouldn't be fair to subject people. And as it was coming out of my mouth, I was catching it. Like, my God, I didn't realize thinking about myself
internally.
Like
Yes.
Yeah, about me. That somehow to present my real self to the world would be a cruel act, or to present myself to people would be distressing and just not a nice thing to do. And when I hear these sentiments coming out of my own belly, out of my own mouth, I was gobsmacked. I knew that couldn't be right. I'd been doing lots of professional development. I was a Christian, loving Jesus, going to church, reciting, I'm fearfully and wonderfully made. I was, I had all the lyrics about how fearfully and wonderful I was. But here, coming out of my own belly, out of my own mouth, was a realization that I am so grotesque that it would be unfair to subject the real me to the world.
Wow.
To my And I didn't know how. I was still on the floor with my hands up in the air. I didn't know how. I didn't know what I was going to, how. It seemed ludicrous. The thought of letting people see me without my physical masks on was nauseating. It frightened me, terrified me, petrified me. I made up in my mind while I was there on the floor with my hands up in the air, same way. I said, I'm going to find a way. I felt called to find a way to show up in my world for real. I felt called to let people see the real me. Back then I was talking about my face. But actually, what it turned into in the months and years after was I had to find out what it meant for the real me to show up. Not just my face, but me. I realized that I had been covering up on all kinds of levels, trying to be like this over there, trying to hide like that over there, trying to be like this for him, like that for her, like this for, like I was trying to be everything to everybody and to hide what was wrong with me. And I just made up in my mind 2009 that that could no longer be the case. I didn't know how, I didn't know what that meant. And so I just, came out of that. I began to, after a couple of years, that was 2009. So I took 2010, 2011 just to really
Mm-hmm.
heal and let that sink in. And pretty soon after, about 2012, I remember being asked my story, like, why are you here? I was applying to join a women's network. They were asking me, why are you here? What do you, why you do what you do? Because I was still coaching at the time. And I said, I really want to help women to show up. And, they asked me why. And so I got my video camera out, and no iPhone back then, but I got my video camera out, and I just recorded a message about what the story I just shared with you.
Yes.
And I recorded it. It was about a 15-minute long video of me just pouring out my heart and saying that we have to learn to show up for real. Women need to learn to show up for real. And the video went viral. Like,
Mm.
people from all around the world, beautiful women, smart women, savvy women, business women, rich women, women who are doing well, saying, hey, Dion, I heard your story and it's powerful. Dion, I heard your story and it's touching my life. Dion, I heard your story and it's resonating. I don't have a face like yours. I never wore artificial eye and dark glasses, but I know what it is to hide. I know what it is to play small. I know what it is to shrink, to cover myself, to hide aspects of myself, to hate aspects of myself. I recognize your story in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
And so, as I got goosebumps telling you,
Yes,
and
and
as
I
I,
am getting goosebumps. Thank you
yeah,
for
as
sharing
I,
this one. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
yeah, well, I think it's really key to be open, because as I started to share my story, they started sharing their stories with me.
Yes.
And I'm telling you that we begin to learn, we begin to grow, we begin to understand this thing called masking. We begin to understand that women are hiding. And, and so little by little, it started to shape my message. This became the cornerstone of my work, my desire to see us showing up for real. And what I've learned over the years of studying how we hide and mask and cover ourselves up and play small and lose our voice and stop speaking up and stop showing up, I've learned that actually it's not just painful and bad for us to live that kind of existence, but the world is aching and groaning for the powerful woman that's behind there that we're hiding, putting her in the
Yes.
closet. The world really needs her now, like really, really. The world is in tragic circumstances. It's dire. The world is confused. It's in chaos. And I have developed the belief over the years that it's actually the voice of the woman, the power of womanity, I like to say, that the world is most needing right now for some of our most prolific problems to get handled. They will not get handled with current systems. Current systems need to be transformed. Current systems need to be rebuilt. Current systems need to be uprooted and refounded and dismantled and rebuilt and restructured. And it can't happen with the same kind of thinking that created those systems in the first place.
Mm, right.
But we need new voices, new leadership, new sound in high level leadership. That's why I put myself there.
Yes.
We need new sound in culture shaping, with the new insights into systems development. And that's why I need us to be showing up for real.
Mm-hmm.
We need womanity to show up for real. The world cannot be well without us regaining our power, reclaiming our authority, and taking our place and occupying our positions with power to influence.
Yes. Influence, your book is called Influential Woman. And I
Mm.
think tied into influence is also income. And
Yes.
I think that as women, after we've crossed the hurdle of possibly showing up, letting people see our faces,
Yeah.
gradually removing the mask, there's that hurdle where the income aspect of things is concerned. So I want you to share your perspectives. where how can women overcome the fear of seeming as though they're demanding too much or feeling as though they're unworthy of experiencing a high income and the high level lifestyle that comes with having a great income. If there's something that you had to do internally to not get caught up in that, especially as a Black woman, there are so many opinions about what we deserve, and there are so many opinions about what we should spend money on versus what we shouldn't be spending money on. And there's
Yeah.
also the talk about, lifting someone up, right?
Yeah.
And even at the expense of our own happiness. So talk
Yeah.
to us about that. What can we do to kind of shatter those mental hurdles where income is concerned?
Yeah. I think that there's a really powerful link between esteem and money.
Mm,
There's a really powerful link between how we see ourselves and our ability to um, receive big.
mm,
And I personally have experience around this. That for me it was about when I was in the mindset of hiding, and the real me is grotesque. What was happening was that I was also experiencing huge challenges in my finances.
mm,
So, so that I was always, I invested in property quite a lot in my early adulthood. So I always had a career, and I always invested in property. So I would buy properties, do them up, and become landlords. I would go around collecting money from my tenants every month. Money would just be flowing in. But you know something? I couldn't hold it.
mm.
I couldn't keep it. I couldn't ask for it in my professional life. And what I've learned is that uh, the way that I saw myself was slave girl mentality, that I had inherited an identity that was rooted in a time before me, a legacy before me, a legacy where we didn't have, where we
Mhm.
depended on people to throw us crumbs and to survive. A time when we had tyrannical slave masters, and where we depended on men to be okay. And I was living like that in my life with money in my adult life, when that time was really, is it like that time I didn't have to be bound by that, but I was creating that unconsciously and couldn't even see it. So I just accepted this sick money life.
Mm.
Money come, money go, like I got holes in my bucket. You know, being asking for less, like almost working for free as a coach. When I first went into business as a coach, giving my services away. I remember having a conversation with, I remember approaching, my background was midwifery, so I remember approaching the head of midwifery because I wanted to do some work with the leadership there. And she said to me, so how much does this cost? And I'm so embarrassed. I can't even remember the number what I told her, but it was so
Yeah,
stupid,
ridiculous.
such a
Yeah.
stupid little number that every time I think back at it, I wince a little bit. And I asked myself what was going on there. But there's just such a challenge to ask for to see my worth and then ask for it. It was such a challenge. We could talk about the unequal system, but I think it'd be more beneficial for us on this conversation to think about how we co-create this inequality,
Yes.
this income inequality. You see, it's like we have to first understand that slavery is done, that we are no longer slave girls, and I learned in my unmasking journey that you can lead in high levels, you can be bright enough to fight and climb into the system, but unless you rid yourself of the slave girl poverty mentality thinking, you're not going to be able to keep what you have. You're going to be so afraid of losing it that you have some kind of money story.
Mm-hmm.
And we need to we I help my clients to understand that we talk about money, like we call it out, we talk about money. As I'm doing my work now, helping women to ascend to new heights of influence, we speak about money, like we call it out. We
Yes.
don't just talk about influence, we talk about money, and we talk about fixing our learning our money stories. I ask my clients to think about their mothers and their fathers, because oftentimes we learn our money habits from them. I ask them to think about their history with money and see the patterns. We must grow. And I find that as we develop, as in the book, I say queen influencers, regal
Mm.
influencers, sovereign influencers, high level influencers, that means that we have to heal. That means that we have to, get our belief system straight, that we have to examine our habits. We have to really look at how we flow in life.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, we'll be called to look at our money and how
Yes.
we deal with it. We have to face it.
Mm-hmm.
If you
Mm-hmm.
are a bright, like that's also what was happening to me in 2009. I knew I was bright. I knew I had something really powerful to offer. And yet the bailiffs were coming to my house.
Mm.
Didn't make sense. It's a mismatch. I want everyone who's listening to this to make that mismatch, make the mismatch a trigger that
Yes.
causes you to want to find the root of this and see what is going on, because it's possible as we grow and heal and get our heads straight and develop our message and grow as influencers, we ultimately interfere that with that pattern in our finances.
Mm. Thank you. Thank you. Yes. All right. So, a portion of your book addresses operate coexisting with men and
Yeah,
leading in where males are at the top. So, what would you say to the woman who is afraid or has fear about how she's going to be perceived in her desire to pursue leadership? I remember listening to this podcast once, and the guest, the person that was being interviewed, said that she met this guy at her workplace, and she was on track to being a manager or partner, and he was on track to being a partner. And so they fell in love, and then she decided to resign so that it wouldn't interfere with his fast track
yeah,
to being a partner. And I thought, well, obviously, they're still married and things worked out. But I thought to myself,
yeah,
why was she the one that had to make that
yeah,
sacrifice? You know what I mean? Because
yeah,
she
yeah,
still eventually went on to continue pursuing her career. So, what
yeah.
would you say to women who are fearful of going into leadership because, they might be competing with men?
Yeah, I say great that you are feeling the fear. If you can feel the fear and acknowledge it, this is an amazing starting point. You see, let me tell you a story about my unmasking journey. So I'll tell you two stories. So when I decided on that floor that I was going to let people see the real me,
Mm-hmm.
let people feel my truth, let people understand what it is that I'm here to do, see me in my true self. When I decided that that was going to happen, I was petrified, and I told you that I had to prepare to show up for real. That's a
Mm-hmm.
clue.
Yeah.
And so I went on to this process of developing a plan, and one of the aspects of the plan was I was going to walk. I was going to walk on the street. I was going to just walk on the street without my artificial eye and my dark glasses on. I was going to just walk. And I remember going to the train station, walking to the train station without my artificial eye, my eye in my bra, and just, uh, and just not letting, and just walking on the street. And so I noticed that people weren't looking, like people didn't vomit or people didn't stop me and ask me all kinds of things that I thought they were going to. And then when I got onto the train, when I was standing at the tube station, and the train came, the doors opened, and I was shaking inside because I'd walked all the way to the train station. Now I was getting on the train without my artificial eye and the dark glasses. So I walked onto the train, and as soon as I got onto the train, I saw a woman, and she looked like she was studying me. She looked like she was looking at me and watching me. So I fixed my attitude now, and like, bad girl, like I'm going to, if she said anything to me, I'm gonna, like, I was ready to fight, I was really fixing myself. I got a bad attitude, and I sat down, and I saw her staring at me, and I'm saying, like, I'm ready for you. I'm ready, ready, ready. And so then she leaned over, almost like in slow motion. She leaned over and she said, "Excuse me, my dear." I said, "Yeah." She said, "Where did you get that coat?"
Oh.
It taught me such a powerful lesson. I was petrified of getting on that train. But actually, the thing that I was fearing the most wasn't even an issue. Like, they wanted to know, because it was a bad coat.
Your
It was a
coat.
very nice, yeah, it was a very nice coat. And so I told her where I got it, and we exchanged pleasantries.
Yes.
I learned a very powerful lesson from that what you think might be going on in your mind, in their minds, actually in your minds. Like, you work out what's going on in your mind. I want to tell you one other quick story about this point. I remember I was working with, I have a client, the Ministry of Defence here in London. So their HQ is in the city, right in the heart of the city. You don't drive into the city here. You catch the train, you catch the bus or the train. So I'd had a long day of working at the Ministry of Defence, and it was time to go home, and I could really have just jumped in the car, but I didn't drive. So the bus came, I jumped on the bus. It was packed. It was like at the end of the work day. The bus was packed, and I saw one seat, and I just made a beeline for that seat, and I plopped myself down. And then I thought, oh, I haven't got my watch on. So I said to the woman who was sitting next to me, she was looking out the window. I said to her, do you know the time? Excuse me, can you tell me the time, please? And I could see that she was as tired as me. So almost like in slow motion, she pulled her arm up to look at her watch. She saw the time. And then I saw her turn to look at me and tell me the time. She looked at my face and she went, "Ah! Ah!"
Oh my God.
Screamed. She looked at my face and she screamed. Her bag went up in the air. Her lipstick flew out of her bag. Her newspaper went that way. She was shaking. She was looking at me. She was really, it's like hysterical. She looked at my face and it horrified her. I horrified this woman. And I could feel like a great cloud coming over me.
Yeah.
Shame, embarrassment, guilt, all kinds of things coming over me, and then descending like a dark cloud. And then I remembered that I decided that there was value in learning how to show up for real.
Yes.
I remembered that when I was preparing to show up, I remember all the horrific things that I thought could happen. I imagined all these people vomiting or poor reaction, and now, like, I knew this was a possibility. I knew that showing up for real was not going to be taken well by some people, that some people would reject me, some people would ridicule me, some people would dismiss me, some people would be cruel to me. I knew that, and I got ready. So here I was on the bus, needing to activate that readiness.
Yes.
I was here on this bus, needing to activate all this readiness. I bent down, I picked up the lipstick, I helped her grab her bag and put in the things and back in. I touched her on the shoulder and I smiled and said, "I'll get up." And I got up and I moved to the back of the bus.
Yeah.
And I sat there. It was a horrible journey home. When I got off the bus, I stood for a few seconds thinking about what had just happened. I hurt. I I felt embarrassed, but I knew that that was part of the decision that I'd made.
Mm-hmm.
And here I am, still alive,
Mm-hmm.
still unmasked, still discovering myself, still showing up for real, still demanding to be seen and
Mm-hmm.
heard
Yeah.
and taken seriously. It didn't kill me. So, for those of us that are afraid of showing up in any dimension, whether it be personal relationships, or if it be professional relationships, or it be community relationships, like, if we're finding ourselves afraid of asserting ourselves, afraid of speaking up or showing up authentically and powerfully, there's a preparation process. I call it prepare to be powerful. That we have to prepare ourselves to be able to respond when the unspeakable happens, or when the unfavorable happens, or when it doesn't go the way we want it, or people don't like it, or like, inevitably, if you decide that you're going to show up in your power as a woman, as a Black woman, as a facially different woman, as a woman, you will piss some people off.
Mm-hmm.
Some people will say, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are? Some people will be horrified, like the woman on the bus, And then there'll be some people who just think, wow, tell me where you got that coat.
Yeah.
Tell me how you learned that. Those people will be your people.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Tell us about what you're hoping to achieve with your book. And I also would like for you to share the journey to meeting your publisher, because your book is published by, not remembering the name of the
Hey,
publisher
how?
right now, Hay
Yeah,
House, which is
yeah,
huge. So,
yes, yeah,
they're I know I interviewed a self-publisher, but I think that's kind of like everybody's dream to get a deal.
yeah,
So
yeah.
what were some of the steps you took to get that, and what are you
All right.
hoping to now achieve
All
with
right.
the
So
book?
before you ask about, so you say, what do I want to happen as a result of the book?
Mhm.
All right. So there's some big themes in the book. The book has, the first theme is inequality is no longer appropriate.
Yes.
Inequality is no longer appropriate at a time when we can send people to, we just celebrated, NASA's just celebrating last week, the bot that landed on Mars, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's people contemplating space travel for their vacation. So at the time when we can do whatever we want, it's now no longer appropriate that we have these issues of inequality and racism and injustice and indifference. Like, these big predicaments, these stubborn predicaments, are no longer appropriate when we can do what the heck we like. When we decide something and it happens, when Kennedy said that
Mm-hmm.
we're going to send somebody to the moon, it's not because we knew how to do it. It's just that he decided that it's time we
Yeah.
knew how to do it.
Yes.
So I don't think inequality is no longer appropriate. The system that creates inequality needs to be challenged. The second theme of the book is that women are the ones to do it, I think. Women are the ones to teach the system, help the system have a change of heart. Right now, the system is heavily IQ, and it's very intelligent, but it's not spiritually intelligent.
Mm-hmm.
It's not loving, it's not kind. And I believe that women and are wired and divinely constructed to help the world know how to be compassionate, loving, fair, kind, just, those kind of things. So I believe that women in leadership are the key to the systems of our world having a change of heart.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so the third theme of the book is that if we are going to do that as women, we're not ready yet. There's some work for us to do, for us to be able to take up that, occupy that role, that answer that call to be that kind of leader in our world. And so my hope for the book is that women will hear the call and that they will decide, they will say yes, answer the call to showing up powerfully, preparing to be powerful in their domain, wherever that domain is.
Mm-hmm.
And the book presents 7 habits that really that I use, that I'm cultivating on my journey to being more and more influential in my space.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I really want the reader to hear the call, answer the call, and then embark on what I'm calling the power path, like finding their own peculiar personal power path to where they are going to be making their biggest difference in the world, the work of their lives, doing the work of their lives, really.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
And the
so
journey
how
to
I
becoming
got it.
published. Yeah.
Yeah. So I I my guru, I've always invested heavily in my development, always have coaches, always have mentors, and several of them would say to me over and over, Dion, you need to write a book. Dion, you really should tell your story. Dion, you should really write a book. Like it was, the theory was from several coaches that you're gonna just bang out a book. I knew about women. My background is midwifery. I spent a lot of time alongside women, and leadership was a theme of my career, and personal development was a ongoing theme of my life. So women, leadership, and personal development. I thought, I know these 3 things very well. How difficult could it be, like, just to bang a book out? Like, they just told me it doesn't have to be war and peace. You can just write a simple how-to book, and it will act like a big business card. It sounded like a good idea, so I really tried. And so the more I sat down to write this book, the more I realized that I wasn't being called to just bang out any kind of generic book.
Yes,
I
yes.
was being called to write a meaningful book. And that challenged me to my core. It challenged me. I didn't understand the challenge. I struggled to write. Sometimes I would stare at blank pages for a long time. Sometimes I would have the idea clear in my mind, and then when I go to write it, there would just be a complete block. That I would really struggle. I hired book coaches. I had a real brilliant coach who celebrated the ideas but saw me struggle inexplicably, like just undeniable struggle to actually get the book written. It was a long and slow process. And then in one rendition of the book, I say that I wrote the book 3 times over, because like I was writing for a long time, just trying to get the ideas out. So the book went through several renditions, and on one rendition, I realized I was really struggling to write one chapter, and the revelation came that the one chapter was actually a book in its own right.
Mm.
And I didn't know how to make it into a chapter. And at the same time, I saw an advert um, for diverse wisdom. So it was called a diverse Hay House. Was at the same time they were saying, we don't attract black writers, we don't
Mm.
attract non-white writers. So it's a very big publishing house, and it had like hardly any representation that was not white, like no non-white representation. So they decided, because they had one writer, her name is oh god, her name's just gone out of my head. She wrote the book called Purpose,
Mm-hmm.
and she published with Hay House, and she challenged them. She said, hey, how come I'm the only one? And so they decided that, yeah, this is not okay, we need to do this diverse wisdom program. So at the same time, I'm struggling to get a chapter who was supposed to be a book.
Mm-hmm.
I see this ad, and I apply for this place, because they're asking us to present a pitch. So I just make this thing up. I just make for this pitch, and I send it in, and I win the competition to go to their
Mm-hmm.
book writing workshop. So this book writers workshop is an annual event. It happens in America, and it happens here in the UK, and I think it happens as well in Australia and Asia. So it's a global thing, but it happens yearly, and that I won the prize. So they had an all expenses paid trip to go and spend the 2 days at their conference, learning how to put put a proposal together, learning how to write your book and so on. And it was really powerful. And then at the end of that conference, they launched another competition. And the competition was not just about diverse wisdom now, it was about everybody, like
Mm-hmm.
nationally you were invited to pitch. Like you had 6 months to prepare your proposal. And so I was invited to, as part of the audience, to go for it. And I, as part of the Diverse Wisdom program, they gave me a mentor. David Hamilton was mine. He's a prolific Hay House author. We became really firm friends. But I told him, my life's busy, complicated, got lots of things going on. I don't think I'm going to submit I don't think I'm going to go
Yeah.
for the big prize. So it was about a week before, no, a few days before actually, and he rang me up and said, "So where's your proposal? How can you send me your proposal?" And I said, "I'm not doing it." He said, "Don't let me have to come there to you. You're doing it." He really roughed me up so bad. Like he said, "Don't be stupid," So I literally had a couple of days to get it together. I just put something together. I just said, "You know what? I'll just do it because he's told me to." I sent it off. I could not believe when months later I got the call that actually I was the winner of the book deal. So I won the book deal based on my proposal that I bitched together in the last minute, you know. But then I had to write the book, and that was a whole other journey. But yeah, so I won. So I really, there are several things in that story, like the fact that the world is waking up to the need for new sounds,
Mm-hmm.
that places that were closed are now developing a conviction about the need to open up. That's important for us to hear.
And being willing
That,
to be coached, even at your level, you
yeah,
needed to take the advice of a mentor. And you had resistance, even as someone who has always been in personal development. You
yeah,
had your own resistance to overcome.
yeah. And we all, we like, it's ongoing. Like, do you know how many women have come to me and said that I've been watching your work for years, but frightened to come? These are not, I work with high level leaders, and this is what they're saying. I've watched you for years, frightened to come, or felt intimidated, or felt unqualified, or felt something, but why they didn't come for long months, years of watching me, thinking I need her help. I need her help, and I didn't and go for it. I say, why? They say, because you're so together, you got all your ducks in a row. I can't tell you the number of people who told me that they can see I've got all my ducks in a row.
Wow. Wow.
It's like we have to understand, like we have qualified, we have disqualified ourselves based on lies, based on what we think it should look like if you're going to be a high level leader, or if you're going to be the woman for the job. We don't believe that we should not know things, or have days where we completely lose our composure, or we get stuck, or we don't know, or it's painful, or it's hard, or we need help. Like, we need help, and that's not a disqualifier. I'm
Yes.
telling you, women, it's not an accident that we feel like this. This is it's coming from history. But I'm saying that it's time for us to heal. It's time for us to get our heads straight. And it's time for us to really invest at high level in developing our message and our ability to influentially deliver that message to the people that need to hear it. Like, we need to develop that stuff. That doesn't happen by accident. That doesn't happen on autopilot. We have to invest in that stuff. We have to immerse ourselves, be led, be taught, be criticized and critiqued,
Mm-hmm.
be be put in the deep end. We need to invest. We need to get serious about the call to influence. We need to
Thank
get serious
you.
about it.
Thank you for your just being so generous with sharing your story and challenging us. And I know this is going to resonate with everyone that listens to the show. And so, my last question to you, Dion, is what keeps you driven?
Yeah, do you know, it's really funny because um, I think for so much of my life, I was driven to prove the naysayers wrong. I was driven to defy the stereotypes and defy their lies about our great people. You know, I was just driven to do that. And as I get older, like I just realized that I'm 55 coming up, and it just feels like wow, how did that happen? And I
Mm-hmm.
find that as I'm getting older, I'm driven to be led.
Mm-hmm.
I'm driven to be led. I'm driven to hold divine hands and be led to defy logic, and I'm driven to manifest the life that I was born to live
Mm-hmm.
divinely.
Mm-hmm.
This is what gets me excited, that I've walked long enough now to see that I was born somebody. And if I just keep my head clean, my heart clean, my ways clean, that I can actually hold the hands of life and I can get led. I'm driven to learn how to not let those hands go, to not rely on myself, to not weary myself, to strive to do things, but to allow myself to be assisted divinely into my destiny. Like this is what drives me now. I'm just curious to know what it's going to look like when what's the next version and the next version and the next version of me going to look like? What does it look like when I evolve to be the woman that I was born to be? Like I'm driven to get there. I'm driven to arrive at the place where I'm making that level of difference, and then that level of difference, and then that level of difference. That's what drives me now. I'm curious
Mm-hmm.
about what she looks
Mm-hmm.
like.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Dion. And I have to say before I go, every time I listen to a woman like yourself who has uh, charted a significant path for herself, her drive is no longer about, shattering stereotypes or
Yeah,
burning down the patriarchy. It's
yeah,
understanding self and
yeah,
recognizing what am I here to do? I'm going to do my good work and, and focus on understanding me. And,
yeah,
I always find that so powerful that it's really
yeah,
that inner work that needs to be done.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
goosebumps.
Yes, this has been so good, Dion. And I'm looking forward to completing your book and sharing my takeaways,
Yes,
and encouraging others to have a read of it as well. You did the
yeah.
audio. You're the speaker in the audio. Oh,
Yes,
nice. Yeah.
yes, I am.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
That
Awesome.
was
Mm-hmm.
another amazing experience. So
Mm-hmm.
thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll be staying in your orbit for sure.
And I yours.
Yes. Take care. Bye.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.